How does it feel when the person you welcomed into your family, the one you trusted to love and care for your son, turns into the thief of your peace? I used to ask myself that question quietly, in the long hours of my evenings, when the phone stayed silent, and the only company I had was the sound of the old clock ticking on my cottage wall. My name is Martha. I am 68 years old, a widow, and a grandmother who has lived long enough to know the sweetness of laughter and the bitterness of betrayal. My granddaughter, Lily, was my joy. That child's voice could brighten even the darkest day. We used to talk almost every evening. She would tell me about school, about her dreams, about the little sketches she was working on. Every call ended with, "I love you, Grandma." Those words were my treasure. But one day all of it stopped. No calls. No messages. No more "I love you." At first, I thought maybe she was busy. Children grow, their lives get full, and a grandmother has to learn to be patient. But when my calls began to go straight to voicemail, when my messages returned with "delivery failed," my heart told me something was terribly wrong. It wasn't like Lily. That child would never choose silence. And that is when I learned the truth. My own daughter-in-law, Brenda, had told Lily to block my number. The woman who had married my son, who smiled at me across family dinners, had decided that I was no longer welcome in their lives. I want to tell you something. The pain of being cut away from your own blood is a pain that runs deeper than age or sickness. It is a wound that does not heal with time. I had welcomed Brenda into my family with open arms. I gave her kindness, respect, and prayers. But she gave me distance, coldness, and, in the end, betrayal. Still, what I discovered later was even worse. This was not just about keeping me away from my granddaughter. This was about control, about secrets, about a plan so cruel it nearly cost me my son's life. But I will not rush ahead of myself. Because I want you to feel this story as I lived it, the silence, the humiliation, the anger, and finally, the justice that came when the truth could no longer be hidden. Before I continue, allow me to pause and speak to you listening to my story right now. I don't know where you are watching me from, or what season of life you are passing through. Maybe you are in your 60s, 70s, or 80s like me. Maybe you know the ache of lonely evenings, or the sting of being forgotten by those you raised with love. But I want you to know this. You are not forgotten. I pray over you now, from my heart to yours. May your health be steady. May your nights be peaceful. May your children and grandchildren honor the love you have poured into them. If your body aches, may you find strength. If your heart feels heavy, may you find comfort. And if you ever feel silenced, may your voice rise again with courage. Now, can you do us a favor by subscribing to this channel? Leave a comment to tell us where you are watching from. Your presence matters to us, and your story matters as much as mine. Because what I am about to share is not only about betrayal and heartbreak, it is also about resilience, about a grandmother's love that refused to be erased, and about the justice that finally came when the lies were exposed. Have you ever asked yourself why silence feels heavier when it comes from someone you love? My cottage has 4 rooms, but once the laughter of my grandchildren was gone, it felt like a mansion of empty halls. Each evening, I sat by the window, holding my phone, waiting for Lily's call. Days stretched into weeks, and still nothing. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe her schoolwork had piled up. Maybe she was caught up in teenage things. But my heart told me otherwise. A grandmother knows when absence is not accidental. You see, my son David had always been gentle, kind-hearted, and easy to influence. From the time he was little, he wanted peace more than anything. He hated conflict, always willing to bend so others wouldn't break. That part of him never changed. When he married Brenda, I saw it again. How quickly he surrendered his voice to hers, how he chose harmony over confrontation. Brenda, she was different from the start. A woman with ambitions so sharp it could cut anyone who stood in her way. Beautiful, polished, and very sure of what she wanted. I wanted to like her. I wanted to embrace her as the mother of my grandchildren. But it became clear that, in her eyes, I was nothing more than a shadow from David's past. At first, she was polite, careful, even sweet in public. But with time, she began pulling David away from me in small, calculated ways. Family dinners suddenly became too much trouble. Holidays were shortened with excuses. The kids are busy, Martha. We'll try another time. Always another time, always another excuse. Still, I tried to keep peace. I smiled when she dismissed my ideas. I stayed quiet when she corrected me in front of the children. I thought she's young. She'll soften with time. But instead of softening, she grew harder, more controlling, especially over Lily. Lily was my sunshine girl. She inherited her father's tenderness and my love for art. She used to come to my sunroom for hours, sketching the roses from my garden or doodling little faces of birds perched on the fence. Her imagination was wild and free, and I encouraged every bit of it. But Brenda never approved. "Art doesn't pay bills, Martha," she once told me, her smile thin and sharp. "She needs to think realistically about her future." Realistically. That was Brenda's favorite word. She wanted Lily to be a mirror of her own ambition, not a girl with her own dreams. The day I gave Lily my grandmother's locket was the day our quiet battle turned open. It was a delicate silver piece, old but strong, passed from one woman in our family to the next. When I placed it around Lily's neck for her 16th birthday, her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "I'll keep it safe forever, Grandma." But Brenda's reaction was ice. She pulled Lily aside and hissed that it was too valuable, that she'd lose it, that it wasn't suitable for a girl her age. Lily stood her ground for the first time, clutching that locket to her chest. "No, Mom. Grandma gave it to me. It's special." I'll never forget the glare Brenda gave me across the room that day. In that single look, she made it clear, my influence was an enemy to her control. After that, my visits were reduced even further. Phone calls became harder. David still called sometimes, late at night, his voice carrying the weariness of a man pulled in two directions. "Mom, Brenda just needs space," he'd whisper. Or, "She's under a lot of pressure." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think it was stress, not something deeper. But then Lily stopped calling altogether. That was when the ground beneath me shifted. Imagine your only granddaughter suddenly goes silent. One day she's calling you about her dreams. The next day her voice vanishes into a wall of excuses. Have you ever felt cut out of the lives of those you love? Have you ever watched from the outside, knowing someone was slowly locking you away from the people you raised? For me, the problem had a name: Brenda. My daughter-in-law had quietly placed herself as the gatekeeper of my son and grandchildren, deciding when or if I could see them. But let me tell you this, what I discovered later was darker than silence, colder than rejection. It was not just about control. It was about life and death. The fear inside me grew heavier with each passing day. I would sit on the porch, staring at my rose bushes, pruning them with shaky hands, wondering if Lily was all right. I thought about her face every night before I slept. I worried if she had enough love around her, if she still remembered my voice. One evening, when I tried to call David, the phone rang and rang before a woman's voice, his assistant, told me he was in meetings all week. Something about her tone felt rehearsed, as though she had been told to say it. It only deepened my unease. The hardest part was not knowing. Was Lily angry at me? Had I done something wrong? Or had Brenda's voice simply grown louder than mine? Every detail around me became a reminder of their absence. The teacups Lily and I used when she visited sat untouched. The rocking chair by the fireplace looked too still. Even the sound of my own footsteps in the hallway seemed too loud. Silence has a way of making even the smallest things feel unbearable. But I want you to understand, I wasn't just mourning missed phone calls. I was beginning to fear. Fear that Brenda had taken my place in the children's hearts. Fear that David was too weak to fight for our bond. Fear that the ties of family, once so strong, could be cut by one woman's hand. That fear, my friends, was not misplaced. Because soon enough, I would learn that my granddaughter's silence was not her choice. It was forced. And the reason behind it was a secret that nearly destroyed us all. It was late afternoon, the kind of day when the air feels tired, and the sun begins to fold itself into the horizon. I was in my garden, bending low with my clippers, fussing over roses that had started to droop. My back ached with every movement, but tending to those flowers was the only comfort I had left. As I trimmed a stubborn stem, I felt it, the quiet sense that someone was watching me. I straightened, shielding my eyes from the low light. There, just beyond the oak tree, stood a figure. Slender, with auburn hair catching the last of the sun. My heart skipped, then stumbled. Lily. My voice cracked. She clutched a backpack to her chest, her shoulders hunched, her eyes darting around as though the world itself might be spying on her. And then I saw it, the silver locket gleaming faintly at her neck. The same locket Brenda had tried to tear away from her. I rushed toward her, my knees trembling more from relief than age. When I reached her, I touched her face with hands that shook. She looked thinner, older than her years, as if childhood had been pulled out of her by force. "Grandma," she whispered, "I had to come. I don't have long." I pulled her into the house, shutting the door quickly behind us. She stood in my living room like a stranger, eyes scanning everything with a nervous twitch. Her little hands tightened around the backpack straps. "Why haven't you answered me? Why did you block me?" I asked, though my voice already knew the answer. Tears brimmed in her eyes. "Mom told me to. She took my phone and made me block your number. She said you worry too much, that it's better if we don't talk." My chest hollowed out. I steadied myself on the arm of a chair, forcing down the fury that burned in me. "My sweetheart," I whispered, "you never needed to hide from me. Why would she do this?" Lily's lips quivered. She leaned closer, lowering her voice until it was barely a breath. "It's about Dad." At once my world narrowed. "My son. What about David?" I asked, clutching her shoulders. "Tell me, Lily." Her hands trembled as she unzipped her backpack. She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, notes from the hospital, smeared with her anxious fingers. "Dad is sick, Grandma. Really sick. The doctors don't know exactly what it is, but it's attacking his body. His kidneys are failing. He needs a transplant." My knees nearly gave way. The son I raised, the boy who once brought me wildflowers just to see me smile, was fighting for his life, and no one thought to tell me? Why didn't David tell me? I asked, my throat dry. "He tried," Lily whispered. "But Mom stopped him. She says it's private. She says you'll make a fuss and scare him. She says she's going to be the donor, so she has it under control." Her words struck me harder than any blow. Brenda, the woman who had worked so hard to push me away, was now pretending to be his savior. "She told you that?" I asked, my voice cracking. Lily nodded. "She keeps saying she's the only one who can help him. That nobody else needs to know." Something inside me rebelled. The Brenda I knew was not the type to sacrifice anything. Not her time, not her comfort, certainly not her body. The pieces did not fit. "Did the doctors confirm she's a match?" I asked carefully. "I don't think so," Lily admitted. "She says she's doing tests, but she never talks about the results. She just says she's perfect for him." My pulse throbbed in my ears. I looked at my granddaughter, her eyes filled with fear, her voice quivering with secrets, and I felt the weight of truth pressing on me. Brenda was not saving David. She was hiding him, keeping him sick, isolated, while painting herself as the noble wife. I pulled Lily into my arms. "My angel, you did the right thing coming to me. You must not feel guilty. You must not think you've betrayed her. You belong to me as much as you belong to her." She shook her head violently. "Grandma, if she finds out I came here, she'll punish me. She'll take away my phone forever. She says I should never question her, that she knows best." The thought of my granddaughter living in fear of her own mother boiled my blood. No child should have to whisper truths in secret. "Don't worry, Lily," I said firmly. "I won't tell her. But we must be wise. We must be careful. Brenda has built her control on silence, and now we have broken it. That gives us a chance." Lily's voice lowered again. "She doesn't let Dad see anyone. She says he's too weak. Even when friends ask, she says no. She keeps his phone locked away. He can only use it when she gives it to him." Her words chilled me. It wasn't just control. It was imprisonment. That night, after Lily slipped back home, I sat in my chair with my thoughts hammering inside me. Brenda was lying about being a donor. She was lying about David's care. But why? What was her end? I couldn't shake the doubt. Every inconsistency, every excuse, every forced silence pointed to something rotten. My son's life was being measured and manipulated by the woman who claimed to love him. My dear one listening to me now, let me ask you, do you know someone like Brenda? Someone who cuts family ties, who decides who you can love and when. Have you seen people isolated from those who truly care for them? Tell me in the comments if you've witnessed it. Your stories matter, and your words might give another person courage. The days that followed were restless. I tried calling David again, but his phone was still unreachable. When I rang his office, the assistant repeated the same rehearsed line, "Mr. Miller is unavailable." All communication goes through his wife. Through his wife. Always through Brenda. I knew then that I had to act. I couldn't sit waiting for scraps of information, not when my son's life was at risk. Brenda wanted me cut off because she knew I would question everything. And now I had more questions than ever. Why hadn't the doctors contacted me? Why did Brenda speak of being the donor without showing proof? Why was David so isolated? The answers, I feared, would hurt. But I was ready. I was his mother. My fight for him had only begun. After Lily's secret visit, I couldn't sleep. My mind turned in circles, replaying her words. My son was dying, and his wife was keeping me in the dark. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, clutching my rosary with hands that trembled more from fury than age. By morning, my decision was clear. I had to find the truth, quietly, carefully. Brenda thrived on appearances, on control. If I stormed in demanding answers, she'd tighten her grip even more. No, I needed another way. The first person who came to mind was Carol, an old friend who had worked as a nurse. She had been with me during my husband's final days, guiding me through each medical form, each frightening term. I trusted her. If anyone could tell me what Brenda was hiding, it was Carol. I called her that afternoon, my voice trembling as I explained what Lily had shared. Carol listened without interruption. When I finished, she let out a long breath. "Martha," she said gently, "I can't break confidentiality by checking records. But I'll tell you this, no donor match is confirmed quickly. It takes months of tests, blood work, tissue compatibility, psychological evaluations. If Brenda is saying she's already cleared to donate, that's not possible unless she's been through an entire process in secret. And even then, it would be unusual not to involve family." Her words confirmed what my gut had already told me. Brenda was lying. That evening, I sat by my window, staring out at the oak tree where Lily had stood. The locket on her neck had shone like a small rebellion. My granddaughter was carrying hope while her mother carried deceit. Days passed in restless silence. I tried calling David again, straight to voicemail. The house phone, too, went unanswered. My frustration grew, bubbling like a kettle left too long on the stove. Then, one night, my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. "Meet me by the oak tree." I know what's really happening. My stomach dropped. The words chilled me not because of what they said, but because they didn't sound like Lily. The spelling was too neat, too formal. My Lily texted in a hurry, always dropping a letter here, rushing a word there. Still, I couldn't ignore it. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and stepped into the cool night. The garden was still, the roses folding into sleep. My heart pounded with every step toward the oak. From the shadows emerged a figure, not Lily, but Ben, my grandson. Only 14, with a pale face and frightened eyes. He clutched a phone in his hands. "Ben," I whispered, rushing to him. "What are you doing here?" He glanced over his shoulder before answering. "I sent the message. I used Lily's phone. Mom took it from her. She thinks I don't know the password, but I do." The weight of his courage pressed on me. This boy had risked punishment to come to me. "Why, Ben? What's happening in that house?" He swallowed hard. "Grandma, Dad's worse. He can barely get out of bed now. But that's not all. Mom keeps saying she's the donor, but she isn't. I heard the doctor. He told her she's not a match. She knows it. But she keeps lying, keeps telling Dad and Lily that she is." I felt my knees weaken. "She told your father she was his match when she wasn't?" He nodded. "She even made fake papers. I saw them on her desk. She says she's taking care of everything, but really, she's just waiting. She talks on the phone at night. I heard her say she's going to let nature take its course and then collect on the insurance policy. The words struck like lightning. Insurance. Suddenly, the puzzle made a dreadful kind of sense. Brenda wasn't saving David. She was waiting for him to die. Who was she talking to? I asked, my voice shaking. Ben's face twisted. A man. His name is Michael. She said his name more than once. The ground swayed under me. Michael. My late husband's brother. A man I hadn't seen in years because of his greed and selfishness. He had tried to steal from our family before, and now Brenda had welcomed him back like a partner in crime. I grabbed Ben's shoulders. Listen to me carefully. You must go back and you must act as though nothing happened. Don't let her suspect you know anything. Can you do that? His lip trembled, but he nodded. Good boy, I whispered, pulling him into my arms. But I need your help. You must be my eyes in that house. Watch her. Take pictures of those papers when you can. Tell me where she keeps your father's phone and when she leaves the room. Can you do that for your dad? Tears filled his eyes. I'll try, Grandma. You're braver than you know, I told him, kissing his forehead. Now, go before she notices you're gone. I stood at the oak tree long after he disappeared into the night, my heart pounding with equal parts fear and resolve. Brenda had built a cage around my son, but she had underestimated me. And she had underestimated the strength of the children she thought she controlled. The night after Ben's visit, I sat at my kitchen table, my teacup untouched, my hands shaking as I thought of his words. Insurance. Forged papers. A secret man named Michael. My David was not only sick, he was being slowly cornered, stripped of hope while his wife rehearsed a new life built on his death. I knew I couldn't face this alone. The children were too young to carry such a burden, and David was too weak. I needed someone with the knowledge and tools to fight back. That's when I remembered a name whispered once by Carol, my nurse friend. A private investigator she admired, a woman who specialized in financial deceit and family fraud. Her name was Eleanor Vance. The next morning, I found her number and dialed. My voice trembled as I explained the situation. She listened quietly, asking short, sharp questions. By the end of the call, she said, Mrs. Miller, this is serious. If what you're telling me is true, there are crimes here that go beyond family conflict. I'll take the case. That single sentence lifted a weight from my chest. For the first time in weeks, I felt I was not alone. Eleanor moved quickly. She showed me how to communicate with Ben without arousing suspicion. He would send me homework codes through a fake school tracker. Math at 8:30 meant Brenda was on her laptop. History at 9 o'clock meant she was in the kitchen. It was our secret rhythm, a lifeline between my cottage and that guarded house. Each night, Ben became my quiet soldier. He slipped into Brenda's office when she was distracted. His small, shaking hands snapped blurry photos of insurance forms and hospital letters. Each image he sent confirmed the horror. Forged medical reports claiming Brenda was a donor, a recent change in David's life insurance beneficiary, messages between Brenda and Michael discussing their future. Every picture tore at me, yet every picture gave me strength. David's once bright voice now sounded frail on the rare occasions he called. I heard exhaustion woven into his words, as though Brenda stood just out of sight, listening, making sure he said nothing. One night, after Eleanor reviewed Ben's latest batch of photos, she called me. Martha, this isn't just deception. This is attempted murder. She's waiting for your son to weaken enough that intervention is too late. And she has a partner in it. The texts with Michael are damning. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. Attempted murder. A phrase too heavy for a mother's ears, but impossible to deny. I walked to my bedroom and stared at the framed picture of David as a child, grinning with missing teeth, clutching a kite we had built together. He had trusted me with his scraped knees, his secrets, his fears. Now, as a grown man, he didn't even know his own wife was planning his death. The fury inside me hardened into steel. I would not let Brenda bury him alive under her lies. Eleanor and I began planning. She would gather enough evidence to take to the authorities, but she agreed with me on one thing. Brenda needed to be exposed publicly. If we let her spin her story in private, she'd twist it, manipulate it, maybe even slip away with excuses. No, her downfall had to be undeniable. Meanwhile, I kept my routine steady. I pruned my roses. I visited the market. I greeted neighbors with a smile. Outwardly, I was the same Martha. Inwardly, I was preparing for battle. Ben continued his secret work, braver each day. Once, he sent me a message, science at 10 o'clock. That meant Brenda was asleep in her room. Within minutes, a grainy photo arrived. Documents showing Brenda had been in contact with an insurance agent, updating policies in her name. Another night, his message read, English at 7:30. The photo he sent made me gasp. It was a text exchange between Brenda and Michael. Once the policy clears, we'll leave. No more shadows. Just us. Her words to him were written as if my son's life was already gone. I pressed my fist against my chest to keep my heart from tearing apart. Through it all, Lily tried to stay brave, though she lived under tighter watch. She no longer had her phone, and Brenda kept her busy with schoolwork and constant criticism. Still, the locket at her throat remained, a silent rebellion against her mother's control. One evening, as I sat at my window waiting for Ben's signal, a thought struck me. Brenda had tried to erase me from David's life because she knew I wouldn't accept her lies. She wanted no interference, no witness to her scheme. But she forgot one thing. A mother's instinct doesn't fade, and a grandmother's love only grows fiercer with time. I whispered to myself that night, "You will not win, Brenda. You think I'm old, that I'm weak. But you've underestimated the wrong woman." The days leading to our final move stretched like an eternity. Eleanor's team worked on gathering legal proof, while I kept my courage steady for the children. Each night, when Ben's coded messages appeared, I thanked God for his bravery. He was just a boy, yet he carried the weight of saving his father. One night, after sending me the last crucial set of documents, papers proving Brenda and Michael had planned to change David's beneficiaries to secure their share, Ben called me in whispers. "Grandma," he said, his voice trembling, "I'm scared. What if she finds out?" "Listen to me, darling," I whispered back. "You've been stronger than most grown men. You've protected your father. You've honored the truth. And soon, this will all be over. You just have to hold on a little longer." I wiped tears from my eyes after the call ended. My grandchildren were paying the price for a woman's greed, yet their courage was what carried me forward. The plan was nearly ready. Eleanor suggested a family dinner, staged as a celebration, where the truth would come crashing down on Brenda in front of everyone, including the authorities. I agreed. It was time. Each morning I woke with the same thought, today. David is still alive. It was both a comfort and a torment, because I knew how fragile that gift was. Brenda had built a cage around him, but thanks to Ben's courage, I finally had a key. The photos he sent me were no longer just fragments. They were a story, piece by piece, of a woman's cruelty. Hospital letters altered. Insurance forms adjusted. Messages to a man who had no right to whisper in our lives. With every photo, my fear grew, but so did my resolve. Eleanor visited my cottage one evening. She spread the documents across my table, her sharp eyes moving quickly as she connected details. "This is more than enough to raise alarm," she said. "But it will be your choice, Martha, whether to hand it straight to the authorities or wait until we can confront her in a way she cannot twist." I looked at those papers, at my son's life reduced to policies and lies, and I knew Brenda would wriggle free if given the chance. She would play the devoted wife, the misunderstood daughter-in-law, the victim of an overbearing grandmother. "No," I told Eleanor. We had to strike where her mask could not hold. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, studying me. "You want a stage. I want her truth exposed where she cannot cover it," I said firmly. "I want David to see her lies with his own eyes. And I want my grandchildren to know that their grandmother fought for them." That night, after Eleanor left, I walked into my garden. The roses were closing for the evening, their petals folding in quiet surrender, but I refused to surrender. I lifted my face to the sky and prayed, not for vengeance, but for strength, for the courage to stand steady when the storm came. The next day, Ben's coded message arrived, history at 9 o'clock. He had found Brenda's safe slightly ajar. Inside was David's locked phone and a folder of documents she had not yet destroyed. He managed a single photo before footsteps in the hallway forced him out. The image showed a letter addressed to the insurance company, confirming a beneficiary change in Brenda's favor. It was the final nail. Eleanor's team had what they needed. She told me quietly over the phone, "It's time." My heart pounded, but I steadied it with a single thought. Brenda believed she had silenced me. She believed I was nothing but a lonely old woman in a cottage. She had no idea I was already weaving the moment that would end her game. Eleanor's plan was bold, but it made sense. Brenda's strength lay in shadows, in whispered lies behind closed doors. To defeat her, we needed light. We chose a dinner, public, celebratory, impossible for her to control. I was the one who would invite David. Using a new number Brenda didn't know, I sent him a short message. "I have news about your health. Meet me at 7 p.m. tomorrow at the Charles Grill. Tell Brenda it's an investor dinner." Trust me. I waited hours for his reply. My stomach knotted, but at last his answer came. "Okay, Mom." The following day moved with unbearable slowness. I polished the same teacup 3 times. I wandered my garden, touching each rose as though it could lend me courage. By evening, I dressed in my Sunday best, the same dress I had worn at Lily's 16th birthday, the day Brenda's glare had burned into me like ice. Tonight, that glare would lose its power. When I arrived at the restaurant, Eleanor and 2 plainclothes officers were already there, seated at a nearby table. Their quiet presence was a shield I clung to. At 7 sharp, David and Brenda walked in. My son looked thinner than I had ever seen him. His once strong shoulders sagged, his skin pale. My heart clenched at the sight, but I forced my face calm. Brenda, by contrast, glowed. She wore a sleek black dress, her head held high, her hand resting possessively on David's arm. She believed this dinner was hers to control. "Martha," she said with a tight smile as we approached each other. "What a surprise." "No surprise, Brenda," I replied softly. "This is family business." Her eyes flickered, uncertain for the first time. She looked at David, who shifted uncomfortably. "Sit," I told him gently. "There is something you need to see." Brenda's mask slipped for only a heartbeat before she adjusted it again. But I saw the flicker. She knew something was coming, though she didn't yet know how much. I slid a manila envelope across the table to my son. "These are your medical reports. Both of them. The real one, and the one Brenda showed you." David's trembling fingers pulled out the papers. He read in silence, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief, to pain so raw it sliced at me. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. "Brenda," he whispered, "why does this say you're not a match?" Her smile faltered. "It's a mistake, David. She's lying to you." But he held both reports in his hand, the forged one and the genuine one. His silence told me he already knew which was real. I took a breath and said the words that sealed her fate. "She was never your donor. She was your jailer." The silence at the table was heavier than stone. David's hands trembled as he held the reports, his eyes darting between Brenda and me. I could see the fight in him, the husband who wanted to believe his wife, and the son who could no longer deny his mother's truth. "David," Brenda said quickly, her voice low and urgent, "don't let her confuse you. I've done everything for you. I've sacrificed for you. She's just bitter because I asked for space." But the words rang hollow. He had both documents in his hand, one stamped with the hospital's seal, the other tampered with so poorly it looked like a child's trick. I leaned forward. "My son, she has not been saving you. She has been waiting for you to weaken. She changed your insurance. She lied about being your donor. And she has a man helping her, your Uncle Michael." Brenda's head snapped toward me, her face draining of color. "That's a lie," she hissed. But it was too late. Eleanor had given me the final weapon. From my bag, I pulled a second folder and slid it across the table. Inside were the photos Ben had risked everything to capture: forged insurance papers, text exchanges between Brenda and Michael, proof of meetings arranged in secret. David stared at the pages, his knuckles white as he gripped them. You changed my insurance policy?" he asked, his voice broken. Brenda's mask shuddered. Her face twisted in desperation. "David, listen to me. It was for us, for the children. I was protecting our future. By lying to me," his voice cracked, By shutting me away from my own mother? By making my children live in fear. The entire restaurant had grown still, every nearby table listening. Brenda's eyes darted wildly, searching for sympathy, but none came. And then the officers rose from their seats. Calm, steady, undeniable. They approached, badges in hand. Brenda Miller, one of them said, "You're under arrest for attempted fraud and conspiracy." Her chair scraped violently as she stood, knocking her wine glass to the floor. "No. This is insane. David, tell them. Tell them I'm your wife." But David didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the documents in front of him, the truth weighing heavier than any vows. As the officers cuffed her hands, she thrashed, her voice shrill and desperate. "You'll regret this, Martha. You've ruined everything." I looked at her calmly, the storm inside me finally quiet. "No, Brenda. You did that yourself." The moment Brenda was led away, David slumped back in his chair. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the papers. I reached across the table, taking them gently from him. "Mom," he whispered, his eyes wet. "All this time, she wanted me gone?" I squeezed his hand. "Yes, my son. But you're here. You're still here. And now we can fight for your life the right way." At that moment, the door to the private dining room opened. Lily and Ben stepped out, their faces pale but determined. They had heard everything. "Dad," Ben whispered, rushing to his side. "We wanted to help you. We couldn't let her win." David wrapped his arms around both children, his shoulders shaking as he held them close. "My brave ones," he murmured. "I should have protected you from all this." Lily shook her head firmly. "No, Dad. Grandma did. And so did Ben. We just needed you to see the truth." Tears burned in my eyes as I watched them. The family Brenda had tried to fracture was finding its way back together, piece by piece. The officers escorted Brenda out of the restaurant. Her voice faded as the doors closed behind her. For the first time in months, the air around us felt lighter, even with David's illness pressing down like a shadow. That night, I brought my son and grandchildren back to my cottage. It was late, and they were exhausted, but I tucked them into the spare rooms as if they were children again. As I closed their doors, I felt something I hadn't in months, peace, however fragile. The days that followed were filled with movement. Eleanor's evidence was handed to the authorities, and Michael was tracked down. His greedy fingerprints were all over Brenda's plan. He was arrested within weeks. David, now free from Brenda's control, began receiving real medical attention. His doctors confirmed he needed a kidney transplant, and a search began for a true donor. The road ahead was uncertain, but at least it was honest. Weeks later, by God's mercy, a suitable donor was found. The surgery was difficult, but David pulled through. I sat by his bedside, holding his hand, whispering prayers until he opened his eyes and gave me the same crooked smile he had as a boy. "Still here, Mom," he said weakly. "Thanks to you." But I shook my head. "Thanks to Lily. Thanks to Ben. And thanks to the Lord, who never abandoned us." When he returned home, it was not to the grand house Brenda had ruled like a fortress. It was to my cottage, where the kettle always whistled and the roses bloomed in the yard. Laughter returned to my rooms, the children sketching, David telling stories, even the neighbors dropping by with meals. The silence that once suffocated me was gone, replaced by the sound of life. As for Brenda, she faced the weight of justice. Her assets were seized, her reputation destroyed, her future reduced to prison walls. She had fought for control, but in the end, it was the very thing she lost. The sweetest moment came weeks later, as I sat in my sunroom with David and the children. Lily was sketching the roses again, her locket glinting in the light. Ben was reading aloud from a book, his voice strong. David, still pale but recovering, looked at me with quiet gratitude. "You never gave up," he said softly. "No mother gives up on her child," I answered. And in that moment, I knew. Brenda's betrayal had tried to tear us apart, but instead, it had bound us closer than ever. When I look back on those months, I realize betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from within your own walls. A stranger's cruelty can be endured, but when the hand that holds your son's wedding ring also holds a knife of deceit, the wound is heavier. Brenda thought she could erase me with silence. She thought blocking my number, taking my granddaughter's phone, and feeding my son lies would make me disappear. But what she forgot is that a mother's love does not vanish, and a grandmother's strength only grows fiercer with time. To you who are listening now, maybe you've been silenced, too. Maybe you've watched family ties weaken, felt ignored, or been cut off for reasons you don't understand. I want you to know, you are not invisible. Your love still matters. Your presence still matters. And your prayers are still powerful. I learned through this pain that truth always pushes its way to the surface. Lies may cover it for a while, but sooner or later, truth breathes, and when it does, it sets people free. David is recovering now. My cottage, once quiet as a grave, is alive again with laughter, stories, and the sound of children's footsteps. Lily sketches in the sunroom. Ben studies at the kitchen table. My son sits by the window, healthier each day, grateful for every breath. The silence that Brenda forced on us has been broken forever. But I don't share this story just for myself. I share it because every betrayal carries a lesson. Every heartbreak can become wisdom. The lesson here is simple. Never underestimate the quiet strength of love. A controlling hand can cut ties, but it cannot destroy bonds that are written into the heart. And now, my dear listeners, I want to pause and speak to you directly. Wherever you are, whether you are watching from a city apartment, a village house, or a nursing home far away, I lift you up in prayer. May your health be steady, even if your body feels weary. May your nights be calm, free from the weight of loneliness. May your children and grandchildren honor you for the sacrifices you've made. And if you are carrying grief in secret, may peace wrap around you like a warm shawl. If you are in your 60s, 70s, or 80s, I pray that your days are not filled with silence, but with voices that love you, visits that warm you, and hands that reach for yours. And if you have been betrayed or ignored, I pray you find the courage to stand tall, just as I did, because your story is not over. Before we close, I ask you kindly, subscribe to this channel, Granny's Tales. Share this story so others may learn from it. And leave me a comment to tell me where you are watching from. Your words are not just text on a screen. They are proof that we are still connected, that our voices still matter. My family survived betrayal. We endured lies, humiliation, and control, but love was stronger. And that same love, I believe, can strengthen you too. So as I set down this story, I send you my blessing. May your home never fall to silence. May your table never lack laughter, and may your heart always know that you are treasured. Thank you for listening. Until next time, this was Martha, sharing her truth.